She thought she had you figured out. When she rejected you, she expected things to go a certain way. She assumed you'd react like most men do, that you'd be upset, that you'd keep chasing, that you'd wait for her to change her mind. She expected to still have you in the background, lingering, hoping, waiting for another opportunity, because in her mind, you wanting her meant she had control. But what she didn't expect, what she never even considered, was that instead of fighting for her, instead of begging for a second chance, you did the opposite. You disappeared. You walked away without hesitation. You didn't argue. You didn't explain yourself. And you didn't ask her to reconsider. And that's what's making her question everything. At first, she brushed it off. She told herself she made the right decision, that she wasn't interested enough, that this wouldn't affect her at all. But the silence, the fact that you didn't try to prove yourself, that's what's haunting her now. Because if you're not chasing, if you're not waiting, if you're not desperately trying to win her back, what does that say about her? She told herself you'd come back eventually, but the longer time stretches on, the more she starts to notice that something feels different. Before, she felt confident in her decision. She had distractions, she had attention, and she felt secure in knowing you wanted her, even if she didn't want you back. But now she's starting to feel something she didn't expect. It started as a small thought, an insignificant flicker in her mind, but it's growing. She finds herself wondering, why hasn't he tried again? Why hasn't he checked in? Was I wrong about him? And that's where the real doubt begins. She thought rejecting you was a simple decision, but now it feels like one she can't undo. The more time passes, the more she realizes you're not just gone. You're actually moving on. And now, she's the one stuck in her head. At first, she tells herself she's just curious. Nothing serious, just a passing thought. Something that will fade if she ignores it. But ignoring it isn't working anymore. Every time she unlocks her phone, every time she scrolls through her notifications, every time she sees a name that isn't yours, she feels it. That strange, unfamiliar sense of uncertainty. Because she was supposed to react. She expected to feel powerful in her rejection, to feel like she made the right call. But now, she's realizing something else. It doesn't feel as good as she thought it would. And the worst part, she has no idea why. Because if she truly didn't care, if you really meant nothing, if she was so certain about her decision, why does she keep thinking about you? She starts making excuses. Maybe I just missed the attention. Maybe I just like knowing he wanted me. Maybe I just need closure. But deep down, she knows the truth. It's not just about attention. It's not just about validation. It's about what your silence is saying. Because the moment you walked away without a fight, you planted a seed of doubt in her mind. And that seed is growing into something she can't ignore. She thought she was rejecting a man who needed her, but instead she rejected a man who never needed her at all. And now she's questioning if she made the biggest mistake of all. And that's when the real panic sets in. She was certain about her decision when she made it. But now that certainty is turning into confusion, and confusion is turning into something worse. Doubt. Because rejecting a man only feels powerful when she believes he still wants her. When she thinks he's somewhere waiting, hoping, still longing for a chance. But you broke that script. You didn't check in. You didn't try to prove her wrong. You didn't even react. And that's what's driving her crazy. because the men she's dealt with before all followed the same predictable pattern. They'd keep trying. They'd ask for another chance. They'd make it clear they were still an option. And she liked that because it meant she had control. But this is different. You didn't just disappear. You left a void, one that time isn't filling. And that's what's making her question everything, because she expected to move forward effortlessly, but instead she's standing still while the world keeps moving without her. She starts noticing things she ignored before. The way your presence made her feel, the comfort of knowing you were there, the attention that once annoyed her, but now feels strangely absent. Slowly, the weight of rejection is shifting, but not onto you, onto her. She wanted to believe she was better off without you, but now she's not so sure anymore. And the more she sits with that thought, the heavier it becomes, because you weren't supposed to be forgettable. You weren't supposed to be replaceable. You weren't supposed to be the one she regrets letting go. But now, she's wondering if she just walked away from something she'll never get back. And that's when she realizes the rejection didn't hurt you. It's hurting her. She thought time would work in her favor, that if she stayed away long enough, whatever feelings she had left would fade, and she'd forget about you entirely. But time isn't doing what she expected. Instead of making her feel free, it's making her feel trapped inside her own thoughts, her own doubts, her own growing sense of unease. Because the longer she goes without hearing from you, the more she feels the weight of your absence. At first, she tells herself it's nothing, just a small passing thought. But it keeps happening. She catches herself wondering what you're doing. She checks her phone, half hoping to see your name. She goes out with friends, but something feels off. And the worst part, you don't even seem to notice she's gone. You're not watching her stories. You're not lurking in her likes. You're not sending any signals that you miss her. And that's what's really starting to get to her. Because now she's not just questioning if rejecting you was the right decision. She's questioning if she ever really had you in the first place. Before, she believed you were fully invested in her, so much so that you'd stick around no matter what. But your silence is proving something she never expected. Maybe she was the one more attached than she realized. And that's not a thought she knows how to handle. Because now, instead of feeling in control, instead of feeling like she's the one making all the decisions, she's the one left wondering if she was just an option to you all along. And when that thought hits her, that's when the panic turns into something worse. Regret. She never imagined it would come to this. At first, she thought she was simply moving on, that rejecting you was just another decision, one of many, something she wouldn't think twice about later. But now it's becoming clear that this wasn't just another decision, because decisions you're confident in don't haunt you. And yet, here she is, haunted by the silence, by the absence, by the fact that you didn't fight to keep her. She thought you would always be there, orbiting her, waiting for another chance, just like every other guy who tried before you. But you didn't wait. You didn't plead. You simply left. And now she's left alone with the consequences. She starts noticing things she didn't before. The way other men just don't measure up. They lack the presence, the energy, the certainty you had. The way she no longer feels desired in the same way she did when you were around. It's not about just getting attention. It's about the quality of it. The way her confidence in rejecting you is starting to feel more like a mistake than a choice. At first, she wanted to believe she was unaffected, but the truth is, she's not okay. She starts seeking out any sign that you still care, checking her phone more often, waiting for a message that isn't coming, posting something hoping you'll react, only to feel disappointment when you don't. She looks for you in places she knows you might be, just to see if you still acknowledge her. And when nothing happens, that's when it really starts to sink in. This isn't a pause. This isn't temporary. This is reality. And the reality is, she may have just lost the one man she'll never truly replace. And that's when regret fully sets in, because she thought she had time. She thought she could go back if she wanted to. She thought you'd always be an option. But now she's the one who feels left behind. And once that realization hits, that's when she starts to panic. She can't sit with this feeling anymore. The silence is no longer just an absence. It's a statement. And that statement, you don't need her. At first, she told herself that she could handle this, that it was just a phase, that eventually something would happen that would pull you back into her world. But nothing is happening. You're not reaching out. You're not reacting to her subtle attempts to get your attention. You're not watching from the sidelines, waiting for an opening. And that's what's really messing with her head. Because if you're not doing any of those things, if you're not trying to prove you're still affected by her, then what does that say about her worth? Before, she had the power to dictate the terms. She was the one who got to choose whether or not to engage, whether or not to respond, whether or not to let you stay in her life. But now she's realizing something she never wanted to admit. She's not the one in control anymore. You are. And the worst part, you didn't take that control from her. She gave it away by rejecting you, by assuming you'd always be there, by treating your presence as something replaceable. And now she's seeing the consequences of that choice. Because every day that passes, every moment that you remain indifferent, her confidence is unraveling. She checks her phone more often, staring at a screen with no new messages. She goes out, hoping to feel the same excitement she once did, only to feel empty. She talks to other men, but none of them make her feel the way you did. And that's when the real desperation kicks in, because she's no longer just wondering if she made a mistake. She knows she did. She thought she could reject you and feel nothing, but now she's the one feeling everything. And the worst part, you might not care anymore, and that's what's breaking her the most. Desperation is turning into something worse than helplessness, is now overwhelming her. She's not just missing you, she's afraid that she's lost you. At first, she thought she could fix this with a simple text, a subtle reach out, something casual, effortless, just enough to pull you back in. But as she stares at her phone, she hesitates. For the first time, she's realizing she doesn't know how to approach you anymore. Before, it was easy. She knew you'd respond. She knew she had a way back in. But now she's uncertain. And that uncertainty is something she's never had to deal with before. She starts running through different possibilities in her head. What if I text him and he ignores me? What if I reach out and he gives me nothing? What if I have to face the fact that he's already moved on? And that's what really scares her. Because she doesn't just want to talk to you. She wants to feel wanted again. She wants to be reassured that she still has a place in your life. She wants to feel like she still matters, She wants to believe that, even after all this time, you haven't truly let go. But deep down, she knows that might not be the case anymore. And that's why she's afraid to reach out. Because this isn't just about sending a message. It's about risking the truth. And the truth might be that she's lost you for good. And if she has, then this silence she's been feeling is no longer just a temporary punishment. It's permanent, and she's the only one left suffering. She was never supposed to be in this position. She was the one who walked away. She was the one who made the choice. She was the one who thought she had everything under control. But now, she's the one struggling to accept what's happening. Because the moment she reaches out, if she ever gathers the courage to do it, she knows she's gambling with something dangerous. Her pride is screaming at her to hold back. What if he sees this as weakness? What if he doesn't respond the way I need him to? What if I make myself look desperate? But her emotions are screaming even louder, because the longer she waits, the more unbearable this gets. The regret is turning into frustration. The frustration is turning into self-doubt. And the self-doubt, that's turning into something she never thought she'd feel over you. Fear. Fear that she wasn't as important to you as she thought. Fear that you've replaced her. Fear that you see her exactly as she never wanted to be seen. Just another woman who came and went. And that thought, that's what's breaking her the most, because it means she wasn't special. And if she wasn't special to you, then she has to ask herself the one question she's been avoiding this entire time. Was this rejection even on her terms at all? Or did she just push away someone who was already ready to leave? And if that's the case, then maybe, just maybe, she was never the one with the real power to begin with. Once that thought sinks in, she realizes this pain is hers to carry alone. The weight of it is unbearable. Now, this isn't just a passing thought anymore. It's consuming her. At first, she thought she could distract herself, keep moving, and let time erase whatever lingering emotions were left. But time isn't erasing anything. If anything, it's making everything clearer. She wanted to believe she was in control, that she had options, that she was the one deciding how things played out. But now, she's realizing she wasn't the one who made the final decision. You were. Because walking away only works when there's something to return to. And now, as she watches you from a distance, as she scrolls through old conversations, as she debates sending that message she's too afraid to send, it hits her. She didn't just reject you. She rejected a version of herself that could have been happy with you. And that's a version she may never get back. She sees it now. The moment she let you go was the moment she set this entire downfall in motion. And the worst part, she has no one to blame but herself. You gave her space. You gave her silence. You gave her what she asked for. And in doing so, you forced her to face the truth she was never ready for. That it wasn't you who lost her. It was her who lost you. And now she has to live with that choice alone. If this resonated with you, I recommend watching the next video on your screen. Once you understand this, you'll never see relationships the same way again.